Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Outbound Podcast. I'm Perseus, and I'm joined by Sage Zero. We're back for part two of Invictus Fleet Week 2025. I guess it's 2955 for the lore people. But we're looking at Mirai, Misc, Consolidate Outland, and was it Crusader and Tumbril?
Yep.
They're out. So we're gonna take a quick peek on what's new with them and what's available for offer. As usual, we bring the realistic perspective to you.
Yeah. So I guess the big one to come out in this series is the Guardian MX, which is the big ship drop out of this part of the event. The Guardian
TAC too.
and and the TAC. That's right. Yeah, for MSC. We'll get there, but starting with the Guardian MX. Those of you messed around with the Guardian and the Guardian Key. Similar concept. It though is a step up in design. It's got a couple of changes to it with the cockpit design and stuff that they said they're going to roll to the other versions of the ship that make the multifunction displays and stuff a little easier to see when you're in the closed up mode as well as the open mode. The main thing about the MX is that it is mostly a missile boat. It's got gun. I don't think it has guns. It's just all missiles.
I've got it here.
Kind of like the missile version of the Fury. It's a similar concept. I mean, they call it the Fat Fury for a reason. It is an interesting ship. Very TIE fighter like. Maneuverability wise, if you compare it to the F8, it's got a lot better strafe and turning and roll pitch kind of thing, but it doesn't have as much just straight up speed. So it's got that as a trade-off, though the F8 kind of flies like a brick either, but it can go pretty fast in a straight line. So it's kind of...
I've got it here pictured, but you can see they've downgraded the guns from the normal version from two size 5s, and it's just 4 size 4s. Of course, this is an enormous ship, but you wouldn't know it by its by the way they've kind of like they've made it look smaller somehow, but it's still huge.
I think it's the shape. I think that it's because it's like pointed. It makes the front of it look smaller than the back, and it's kind of like an optical illusion. But it's actually a pretty big ship. Like, it's deceptively large.
Yeah. No, it's actually... I think it's quite interesting in terms of the whole Guardian series. I like this one more than the other ones. I know some people have said that, oh, it doesn't have the bed.
Mic off.
To me, this one
Mic on.
These heavy fighters, I really didn't want them for the bed. I still view them as a fighter. You use them and you return to a fleet potentially with them. I'm not sure if this even fits in any other ships, like to be a carrier-borne type ship.
It doesn't. Doesn't even fit in the Idris. Well, it does fit in the Idris actually. It's very.
I think it just
barely. Yeah, it's like you could maybe fit a can of Coke between the top and the bottom of the Idris. Like, it's a very tight squeeze. Meters, it definitely works though.
This is huge. We were looking at these earlier.
Yeah, I mean the Guardian MX. It's an interesting series of ships. I'd be curious to see if the I know the issue with the Key and the base Guardian was a survivability thing. For a ship that's large, it didn't have a great survivability, but with the bump to military shields, it might actually be a pretty good stand-up fighter. Now you could probably say that a lot for most of the heavy fighters. So we'll see how that pans out, I think. Oh yeah, there you go. You're comparing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it's not much off of Cutlass, which is, you know, yeah. So
definitely an interesting design. I kind of like what they're doing with the Mirai type ships, where it's definitely more function over form in a way. It's more practical in its design, but also kind of like over engineered. So I'd be curious to see kind of how they kind of keep this line of ships going and what they change. But I don't know that I think what's the current asking price for it.
Oh, what did they?
It's 290.
Oh,
Like
it's gonna be down
that's
here.
that's a lot. You may as well buy like a multi cruise ship. You'd get way more use out of it. Like it's a lot.
290. Yeah.
Mic
Special
off.
Great offer apparently. And they got a war bond. Yeah. This will be one of the only war bonds they probably
Mic
put
on.
onto it. Save 20. I don't know if the only way I get this is in game, or if I didn't like something else that was less money on my chain and I wanted to upgrade into it just to get rid of something.
Yeah, it's kind of the
maybe
way I
would
see
get
it.
This is more than a Taurus, more than an Andromeda. Yeah,
there's a lot of better ships in that category.
Corsair.
You could get.
Yeah,
ostensibly.
So you're, even an Aries. We were talking about an Aries and with us privately before the show.
Yeah.
But you look at a lot that is less than this thing, and you're like, damn. Is it going to have that much value? I can't see it. Scorpius. We just talked about having a little missile rack too. So what's the difference between this thing and a Scorpion?
Yeah, right.
That you can put the rack on for less. Even you put a plus 30 for the rack. You're 270. So So for me, the price is no good. It's got a lot of capability, but it needs to win. I don't think it's worth 290.
Yeah, I don't think it is either, really. The other versions of it.
Types.
Yeah, the key is interesting. It's a tackler. The problem with it is that inherently, as the role for a tackler, is you have to be able to keep up with what you're tackling, and the Guardian is just not that fast, and that's the truth of it. So it kind of, if you're trying to tackle something bigger, like another medium to large size ship, like a Cutlass or a Connie or something like that, sure. Or we got tackled the other day in the Idris by one of them that was following us around. But if we had even had one light fighter out of there, that Guardian key would have been in serious trouble. They would have had to have run, because it can't take a pounding like that, and if you're going to try to tackle it, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage because you're already slow, and whatever you're tackling is just going to turn around and blast your ass. That's the truth of it.
Yeah. I think it doesn't. I mean, it's two size 5s, right? And you can see them hidden inside. You look at the other version. We went out of order, but
the base version I think has 4 guns and missiles.
Yeah, it's got 2 on over here on somewhere else. I don't know. I am not really a fan of the Guardians. They look and feel, and I wish they were better than they are, but
it definitely feels good to fly. Like the Mirai ships have a good flight model. They've just got to really nail it with, if they're going to do a combat design, it's got to make sense in a little bit way. I think they tried to make the Guardian too much like the Fury, because the Fury as a snub is a very, very capable ship, and just because of its design. But when you scale that up to something larger, it makes a lot less sense, because the reason that the small ship is designed that way is because it has to be, right? And then you scale that up to a larger ship and you try to turn it into something more complicated that has like a back and that kind of stuff, and not just the smallest compact version of a fighter you can make. It makes a lot less sense to design it that way, right?
Yeah. You got the Pulse.
Pulse is it's probably one of the best bikes you can get. I nicknamed it the Scooty Puff Jr. because, who hasn't? If you've never seen that episode of Futurama, I highly recommend to go see it, because you will not be able to look at the Pulse without chuckling. It's great.
Yeah. It's an incredible bike, but it's an earning game for me.
It's so cheap in game. You may as well get it in game. I bought one back when it was the War Bond. I actually bought 2 of them, and then I upgraded one.
Tokens.
Yeah, I upgraded one of them to my current Connie right now, my Andromeda. and then I'm still sitting on another one just in case. I'll may update it to something someday.
But at this point,
But I mean, it was a $30 LTI token when it came out. You can't beat that. That was a hell of a deal right there.
Yeah. Razor EX, I think this thing is quite interesting in terms of its capabilities in stealth and observation and reconnaissance in a small form, enabling you to put it in other ships that, strictly speaking, it might not be intended to be in. In terms of its small size and go into another ship.
It is insanely fast and has a very small EM signature. You'll lose lock on it if it's outside of 3 kilometers from you, which makes it really challenging to deal with.
It has very annoying little guns that are single press shotguns, basically.
You can swap them out. They're just they're size 2 ballistic scatter guns.
But it's a racer. It's a stealth reconnaissance vehicle potentially.
We had one. We were at a Hathor site the other day. We had the Idris parked around it, and one of these little dudes showed up because it was the day that the Mirai was on sale, and somebody picked it up, and he snuck up to the Idris without popping up on radar and started killing our guys that were on the ground looting. We were like, "Where the hell did this dude come from?" So I mean, it's good for that. Yeah.
It's a nuisance vehicle. I think if you have a use for it, maybe get it in game. I don't see it being 155.
Yeah, not at that price. No, it's not worth it.
I think the game. What is the game price?
Game price is not even that much. I think it's like 1 mil or something. It's almost classed as a snub just because of the size.
7.
Yeah,
it's gonna be 1.7. In terms of, and if you look at my dollar value, it's near the bottom in terms of it's every dollar you spend is 11k AUEC. It's a far cry from some of the other ones that you might get more value out of, like out of spending real life money on.
The Fury. So the Fury is classified as a snub fighter, meaning that it does not have its own quantum drive. So that is the big negative for it. Now, if you have a friend or if you yourself have a TAC, you can stick 2 of them in a TAC as launch fighters. They are very effective in PvP. If you've never flown one, they are insanely maneuverable. They are quick. They can strafe, pitch, and roll faster than just about any other light fighter in the game can. And they can take a light fighter toe-to-toe. With the exception that it has a smaller shield than a typical shield, so direct hits is gonna, pretty much vaporize you, but you could run circles around most ships, and some of the higher tier PvPers like these Furies because they can sit there and take on a ship twice their size and just tear through them. They're very strong.
The only thing that makes me hesitate about this thing is, it's very capable, at least in the current game. It seems well worth it, but a lot of talks out there about how Death of a Planet Man is coming, and it, I wouldn't want to be in a fragile little craft that's going to get taken out.
I think it's more of a role specific thing. If you want to be able to turn just about any ship into a micro carrier, you're going to need one of these ships. Like, I think when they first came out, somebody crammed 20 of them into a Caterpillar, and they used it as a launch carrier. They just opened up all the doors and launched them out of the side, and you had like a swarm. So, I mean, it can fit that role. I think mostly the role that they would fit in would be a local air defense. So if like your TAC is parked somewhere, you have some guys who you launch one of these suckers out of the top and just have them play air patrol, and that's pretty much the only reason you would need it.
Yeah, I think there's the MX version, which is the missile version. I think they have their role. I'm wondering what their future is going to be. Obviously it's very fragile. Other stuff is, something like this I think is actually going to have more capabilities in the future as more multi-crew things come into play, heavier armor, weapon sizes that won't hurt other ships based on their size, which I think is a very needed feature, in fact. But it does make me wonder where this is. I mean, this missiles will all be always able to reach farther, are going to be able to punch up potentially. But this with its size 2s and some of these other smaller crafts make me wonder what the future is for them. But yeah.
The other thing to mention about those is that because of their size, like most snubs and most smaller ships like this, their EM signature is very small. Like their cross section is also very small. So just because of the size and the amount of firepower you can get out of a Fury, and the fact that it's small enough that it doesn't show up on radar actually makes it quite a capable stealth fighter. And that's
Great point.
Yeah, I've watched some folks on YouTube that were using these guys launching out of another ship, and they were actually ganking people around the Hathor sites with them because they weren't popping up on radar. They would just get right up in their face, jump them with 2 Furies, and they would kill a ship like twice their size with a couple of Furies because they got up within their kill range and hit them, and by the time they reacted, they were just already dead. So like, it has its uses. Can be fun to fly around, like, so I'm not opposed to it. If it goes onto a sale like that, you can find an LTI token for a Fury like when they first came out. I know a bunch of people who bought a bunch of them and just used them for LTI tokens to flip over. But otherwise, they're pretty cheap in game. You may as well just buy one in game if you ever want to fly it around. It's in the same category as the Merlin. It's a great fly, but no QT drive, so it's only got so much usefulness out of it.
Yeah, we got the Mirai pack as well. Just like the other packs, don't buy them. Just, I mean, I guess unless you wanted every single one for whatever reason. But
you
there's
happen
always
to be
a ship in here that says like, why do you want that one? You know, you've got, you want all 3 Furies. You want all, What really gets me would be the Razor one. You don't need the base one. You have these other 2 ones. I think one of them, one of them you don't want, actually. I forget which one. Misc.
Misc has a lot of cool stuff in here, honestly. I think they're very quickly becoming one of the most fleshed out ship manufacturers. The Starlancer series, which was added this year, the Starlancer Max and the cargo variant of it came out earlier, which we've had a good look at. And then just recently, the TAC came out, and the TAC is a multi-role military vessel. It is both ground support and dropship, which is kind of an interesting combination. So you guys can see it's got that very large gun that points down, very AC-130 style. It's got drop seats, it's got door guns, it's got a medical facility in it. It can carry vehicles, it can carry a little bit of cargo, it's got a large missile supplies in it as well. It's heavily armored. So I mean, it's kind of a very interesting, combat multi-role ship that has a lot of functionality in it. So you can't really go wrong with it. The main drawback to it right now is that the speeds on it leave a lot to be desired. It's quite slow, both in nav and in SCM. Though just recently it was seen on one of the patches on the Evocati server that it looks like it's going to get a bit of a buff to its movement.
You're gonna switch that up.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good to know. It's definitely a capable ship. It also has 2.
I think your mic went off. I can't hear you. But yeah, I think they're gonna change that up.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna increase the speed. But yeah, I think I think even though the guns don't rotate fully forward, this one doesn't rotate. It can't fire forward. You can still broadside with this thing, and I feel like it's just a different way of flying. You can shoot this one to the side. You can shoot the other one on the. It's not pictured, but this one here.
If you kind of tricord or vector yourself towards the target, you could definitely get all the guns overlapping.
You can get these 3 aligned.
Yeah.
This 5 and the two on these size 4 pairs, and one of these size 5s. Just getting a broadside on something. the way I like this is you close and engage with the pilot guns. You make a pass on either side, and let your gunners get a full broadside on it, and you turn away. That is actually how at least I play my multi-cruise ships anyway, like a Corsair. You make a pass, you take shield damage, you roll or rotate to the other side to accommodate for that. I don't see this as a huge negative that you can't fire forward with them completely. I'm more bothered about the rear coverage or the bottom coverage, actually, rather than the lack of direct forward firepower.
I think part of the intention there is that because it's got the small hanger on the top for the Furies, that your Furies are supposed to be kind of covering you. I mean,
I agree with that.
And in a fleet roll, you're not really going to be by yourself, but it's got enough.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I like the overall. Overall, I like this ship a lot. I do think that that once again they made mistakes on the interior management of space on some of the features in this ship. But at least it's better than the Max, which frankly was a complete mess with wasted space. But yeah, overall, I give this a pretty good. I have one. I'm very excited with mine. I think it's great, and I think it's going to continue to be used a lot. It is a patrol craft. It's got very long range. It's a Misc ship. It's going to have good recovery for hydrogen, as far as I understand it. Hydrogen recovery has not really been implemented in this game as of yet. But I think it's going to be something that's used by a lot of people. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's good to see Misc kind of delving a little bit more into the military ships. Because like the Freelancer MIS there was the only one that they had before. And the Freelancer is a cool ship, but that MIS was not really designed to be quote-unquote a military ship. It's got missiles, but it's not really like a full-on ship.
Look, it's right there. It's right in that thing.
Yeah.
Medium freighter built for life. I wonder if they'd change that properly, right? Because they say it's a combat gunship, but it's still a freighter. It's got some interior space, small cargo and small beer. Yeah, it's. I don't know what vehicles you're running other than like that little dune buggy.
Nah, it's about all you can really fit in there. I think you can fit a cyclone in there.
Yeah, I think this needs. It needs a pass in terms of polish. It's dated. It's what it is. It's dated. It's one of the first ships they ever implemented. A lot has changed. A lot was not implemented as they originally stated it would be. These guns and potentially all Misc guns, I'm not sure, they were supposed to be able to swing out and be shot from the side by a crew member, and that doesn't happen. The VTOL engines, or the engines were supposed to be able to VTOL or rotate down and become like a VTOL, but that didn't happen. So there is a lot of things that this is essentially in my mind an incomplete ship. So
yeah,
it does have a lot of missiles though, so that's good.
Hopefully with some of the redesign work they did for the Freelancer or the Starlancer, they'll come back and kind of retrograde this with some of the stuff that they designed to build that out. Because
this needs a full interior gut, especially in the crew to the front half. I mean, the back half is just a cargo section and components. But this whole thing needs a rework.
Even in the Max version of it, there's cargo spots that are like above, like past the wall on the inside into the second section. That the only way to get the cargo into that section is to snap it through the roof physically.
Yeah.
So it was designed before cargo grids existed, and it's messy. Yeah, for sure.
And it was just a real shame because I actually quite like the concept of the Freelancer series. It's a small kind
I
of
like it, and the cockpit is cool.
4 people.
I like the Misc cockpits are really good, and it felt comfortable in there.
But at the same time, you've got this, and you have to compare it versus some of the other Misc offerings, even like the TAC.
Yeah.
This is a 5-person ship. Allegedly, it's got 4 bunks in it. Yeah, it's got 4 bunks. There's a lot of things that you would rather be manning than that.
The Reliance, an interesting ship, more just because of the B-wing design, very Star Wars like. It doesn't really have much going for it though, because as a fighter, it's kind of and just about anything else, it's kind of
I think it's not where it needs to be, in terms of what does it bring. What makes this unique? Why are you trading being a giant target with these huge wings? What's the upside to that? It's a 2-person. It used to be even referred to as a starter. I do wonder, this is an older ship design as well. I do wonder where the original vision for the entire Misc lineup and series was. This ship is pretty much unique in terms of where it was. I'm not sure lore-wise what happened with this, or if whoever developed this went to Mirai. Did they? I could see that a little bit in terms of its, just appearance. I'm not a fan though. For $75, I'll go get the Origin 325A, which we were discussing in the previous video.
And then just buy this end game and enjoy having a neat collector ship. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, it's
definitely a collector thing. It's a unique ship that there's not anything like it, but is it particularly useful, or does it have a unique role? Not necessarily.
I think what's more compelling even would be the the variant version. So but they're not. That's not part of the ILW sale. So yeah. Next one, Gemini refueler. This is the military version. I'm not actually sure exactly what changed with the other version. It's just extremely dated. The interior design is frankly crap.
I think
they designed this thing as part of that first-person shooter layout, and it's just wild. Not recommended in my opinion, but I wouldn't buy it.
Once the ship-to-ship refueling and stuff is in the game, and it does work to a degree, so it does have a function.
It does have a function. It's true,
but
I don't want to be part of that function.
Yeah. Some people like doing that kind of stuff, and once the beacons and stuff in game are a little more reliable, and you can, there's some kind of security around it, so that you're not taking your Starfarer Gemini out to somebody who's going to rob you, or at least if you do, you're going to know that they're going to probably try to rob you. Then it'll definitely have its gameplay loop and its niche to operate in. In the meantime, my vote is that it's an in-game buy. Unless you just specifically want to do that, just kind of like the SRV, and you're passionate about that kind of gameplay, then there's not really any reason to get one.
I wish there was, but frankly, it needs help.
Definitely needs polish.
And its functionality needs to be fleshed out.
Mic off.
Yeah.
Mic on.
The Max, which is strange that it was in here, but I'm pretty sure it's only in here because of a pack that includes the TAC. This is the cargo variant of the Starlancer, and frankly, I've heard some other people say this too, and I completely agree with them, is it should have been just the Starlancer base. It's not a Max. It wastes way too much interior space to be a Max. And I first got this as part of I bought the pack, and I got into it, and I was like, what the heck did I do? This was a huge mistake, because I hated it in terms of its space usage, the luxury suites upstairs, the excessive elevators.
You were more expecting it to be like
other people that had the same thing, and I was like, yeah, this is not just me. This thing sucks in terms of.
You were expecting it to be a bare bones hollow like the Freelancer Max or the Taurus, right? I guess.
yeah, if you're gonna say max anything, um, I expected it to be a max. They
Right.
completely changed the Freelancer entire fuselage to maximize its space and make that thing completely functional. And that was my view of what this was gonna be. And they completely let me down. So I think if you want a ship this size and you need space, I guess there's going to be other options in terms of cargo. I think the Raylan coming out someday, some point, much more cargo. Even the whole B, much more cargo, which is going to be much more compelling to me. In terms of moving cargo around. It's 224. There is problems with loading cargo in this thing as it is. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I think there's cooler things to be driving around in. Flying around in.
I think that brings us around to the end of Misc, because the next one is the TAC again.
Yeah. There's an offer I guess we were looking at. What's the offer? War bond price. Yeah, so $375. Pick it up for $340. Not that I would. I just pick up a CCU, upgrade to some sort of LTI token into it, and save the money. All right, and a consolidated Outland. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the one alleged combat ship they have, which is
just the Mustang. Yeah,
the Mustang Delta, which I believe is the starter one for them. I think it's actually a starter pack. Actually, yeah. By speaking of the TAC and stuff, they have a couple packs.
The Alpha is the starter. The Delta is the military specific one. Yeah, the Alpha only has the 2 guns on the nose, and the Delta has 4 guns. That's about the only difference. I think it's got a smaller interior too. I don't think it has the bed. I'm pretty sure it uses a definitive military shield. Which there's, while unique and like design wise, like if you've ever sat in a Mustang, the cockpit's kind of cool. It's a very high vis cockpit, and they're pretty maneuverable ships. But as far as like a combat fighter, it is basically a civilian craft strapped with combat weapons. Like, it's not a great ship.
I not recommended. If you're gonna spend $65, go get a 300 series.
Yeah.
You spend the 10 more, get the 325A. And have much more function. It's got a bed. The 325A has a restroom and a bed and a locker, a gun rack, for your weapons. Has great visibility.
Or the Avenger Titan
has better weapons.
Thing. Yeah, same thing.
So this is just ignore this one.
Maybe we'll see some of the other consolidated Outland stuff, with IE later in the year, because they're supposed to be more on the base building and frontier smithing kind of side of things. So I imagine when that gameplay kind of develops, we'll get more stuff from them. But
yeah. Crusader Industries, lot of offerings potentially, but strangely I don't have any. I think to my own fleet that I've purchased or bought in game, I should say I've pledged that I don't have any Crusaders that I'm planning on keeping. I actually think I have this thing and I don't like it, so oops. The bomber, I think it's capable, but the biggest problem with this thing is its shield. It's supposed to be a bomber and it gets chewed up pretty quick.
Yeah, it's definitely a very big target. For a bomber, it's got a huge cross section, which makes it easy to see from the ground. So
the bombs are quite powerful, but
you get a lot of them, and they're very powerful. Right now, bombs are very overtuned in general. It's definitely fun to play around with, and now that there's capital ships in the game, there is a little bit of a gameplay like necessity for it, because who doesn't want to go bomb an Idris off the ground? But it definitely, a couple weeks ago, I actually took one into a combat scenario. We were trying to clear out an area we were going in to do some looting, and I went to go bomb a ship that was on the ground that we knew was manned, and I barely got caught by one of the turrets, and I lost a wing, and then it was just all downhill from there. So I mean, it's definitely not as fighter sturdy as you would hope a bomber would be.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say it's entirely possible to completely kill yourself with it if you bomb a target and you didn't realize
Do be careful with the minimum range, because you can murder yourself with the bomb. There are no safety features.
Yeah. It's also kind of expensive. It's 200. I don't know. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I mean,
especially now that they put in bomb racks now. So some ships that you might be able to carry bombs. The other version of the bomber,
the A1 Spirit does have size 6 bombs, I think. So they're 5 bombs, 5, and then there's the Moab, which is the other bomb. But yeah, they're a couple size categories bigger than the rack bombs.
In some regards, though, the rack bomb is too big.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Or the bomber bombs are too big, and the rack bomb might be just right for what you're actually trying to hit.
Well, they're OP right now anyway, but I digress.
Yeah, they are pretty overtuned. So.
A2 falls under that. A2 is the Hercules version of the bomber. It can drop the Moab bomb. It can also drop size 5 bombs too if you want to load it up. Not,
I will say it's
super
very
necessary.
well equipped in terms of gun turrets.
Yeah, it's definitely it definitely kind of followed the B2 bomber situation with this. It's got a lot of good turrets on it.
Yeah,
and it's very defendable little air fortress. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's other than its price.
Yeah, the price
is $750, and it is enormously expensive. It's still a lot of cargo, but you're not using this for cargo. You're using,
It's also very role specific, because the only thing you can do is drop bombs and you have some turrets. But if you're not in a situation that requires you to bomb a target on the ground, half of the functionality of the ship isn't really there. So you may as well have.
Look at this misleading photo, though. Look, they've got like 25 bombs. What is this? I guess if the intention was this is the Moab bombs. You got 10 of these.
You can technically put them on the cargo grid and feed them in. They do snap in.
I think this would be more compelling if you could have like 25 different smaller bombs instead of all of these huge ones.
Yeah, true.
You could really carpet bomb things, but that functionality is not in game. It might be just based off of this pictures. But yeah. I think it's a cool ship, but I don't have one because it's too expensive. I probably will end up getting it in game.
Moving on from that, the Ares platforms are actually pretty good. Out of the heavier fighters, it's one of the more useful ones. Its main role is to deal with larger ships. So your Corsairs, your Connies, your Hammerheads, even capital ships. It has a bespoke size 8 gun. The Inferno has a ballistic weapon. The Ion has a laser weapon. So with that, the Ion is a little better in longer term engagements, but that Inferno absolutely just does an insane amount of damage in a very short time. For a heavy fighter, it's actually quite maneuverable. For something its size. They also have a pretty good complement of missiles that comes with these. I think the defaults actually come with Rattlers, and Rattlers are pretty fucking scary. So they're neat little ships. With the Hunt the Polaris mission going on, there's been a lot of people that have been using their Ions to snipe out all of the turrets and PDCs and stuff from a range, which is kind of the role that the Ion is supposed to be, whereas the Inferno is more of a point blank spewing weapons. Think of it as a what do you call it? It's like a A10 Warthog. It's just gigantic chain gun that destroys everything.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be very useful. I think these are gonna be more common when the armor is implemented as intended, because they're going to shift to some of these weapon sizes to not be able to damage things, or a size 3 is going to do nothing to a larger capital ship, and a size 4 may scratch the paint.
Yeah, hull and armor penetration is going to make these, is going to what's really separate these into a good roll.
So these have promise. I'm gonna try to fly these when I get in the game next time.
Out of the two, I'd say the most worth your time is probably the Ion. Now, the Ion laser, they changed it up a little bit. Originally, the projectile velocity on the laser was quite fast, and people were using it to snipe light fighters from a very long distance away, because the velocity was fast enough that you could almost like pinpoint target people. And then they changed the mechanic up to where it was a charge up. You hold it and it winds it up, and then you let it go, and it fires a single fast round that does high damage, to add a little bit of a skill curve to it. And then they changed it back to the way that was originally. They just slowed the projectile around. So it's gone through its different development paces, but it's still a pretty solid ship. And the fact that it's a laser weapon compared to the ballistics where you'll run out of ammo, it's quite strong still.
Yeah. I don't have any opinions either, other than I'm excited to try them and learn more about it. I think they have a lot of promise.
Yeah.
C1, it's just the
base version of the Spirit. Yeah.
It's just a very capable small little ship. 2-man. I think it's got 2 seats. It's
a larger version of Intrepid. Just about. It's got a larger interior, but similar design.
Yeah. Solid ship. I'm actually not sure why it's here, but it's here. This one is also here. I think it's got a daily CCU. I don't know if by the time anyone sees this, if it's gonna still be here, but potentially at the end of the LW, it'll come back for a purchase. Savings of $30 looks like. Personally, though, I'm not getting it. Mainly because of the competition that's in the $400 range, namely the Ironclad, which is much more in terms of cargo and functionality. This is intended for movement of vehicles. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's never was intended for cargo, which is really what people use it for. I think it's rare to see anyone actually using it for vehicle transport. Not a fan.
Well, speaking of Ironclad, what do you think of Drake not being at the Invictus Launch Week this year?
Well, I assume they'll make a late appearance and crash the party as
a tradition on their part. Yeah,
as a tradition. Yeah. I believe that there was leaked files about a hangar containing Drake things. So I know they will show up.
You think they'll have any surprises for us this year?
I don't think they're going to have any. Ironclad's not going to show up at ILW. No.
I know there's a lot of people who want that ship. Real bad. You're not the only one. So
yeah.
At the very least, maybe we'll get lucky and get a development update on it. That would be nice.
I would appreciate that. I think a lot of people would like to know if the Ironclad Assaults will ever have a tractor beam. But at the same time, I hope it doesn't. I think that would make it too overpowered potentially compared to the base.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think a lot of people would like to hear more about the command module that Drake ships get, because frankly, I'm a little scared if you have this heavily armored freighter and all you're gonna do to take it out is just obliterate your command module with sniping shots and or just basically target the command module, because that's also your escape ship. You don't have escape pods on a Drake. You got a command module that can fly away. So it's like, wait, is that thing gonna be armored? Is that gonna be
right?
How is that?
All the shields will be over that one specific part. Something, right? It's got to be something.
Yeah. And we got this guy, M2, a little less than the A2. Still pretty well equipped. Um,
The M2 is the military version of the dropship. I think the original intention, I don't know if it is still this way as far as like stats go, but the M2 was supposed to have a larger front shield because it was meant for battlefield deployment of armored vehicles and that kind of stuff. So it was built in a way so that they could set down the ship facing fire and use it to block as they were trying to unload. So I don't know that ever got realized in the game, because I think the original intention was it was supposed to have like a capital shield ship, or ship shield like internally. So
yeah, I mean, once armor gets implemented, some of these things that have said that their entire focus is having heavy armor. We'll see how that affects how we think about them. I think the direct competitor for this is the Ironclad Assault.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which I think is $15 more. That has a lot more cargo space. It's tough to say where those will line up compared to this. I don't have one. I don't actually plan on having one. I like the Ironclad looks just better. Sometimes the rule cools where it's at for me, and at least for me it is. So I do think it's probably a very capable ship if it's something that you're interested in. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. Not for me. It'll be an earning game. I think the Mercury is the last Crusader ship. Ooh.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. 260, it's a medium data cargo transport ship, which I think you know what? I wonder if this is the reason why they had this in here. It's because they put bomb racks on it.
Yeah, they did.
You're allowed to buy bomb racks and put them on this thing. So, we'll see how it goes. I think it's fallen out of favor for a lot of folks.
Just because it was originally, a lot of people used it for cargo running because it does have a fair amount of cargo space. And then it's actually got smuggling ports underneath for smuggling. The original intention was that you could put like illegal substances down there and it would get scanned by the exterior because it was like a shielded cargo hold. So I don't know if that functionality actually works right now, but I know that was the original intention.
I don't know either. I do know that most of the spatial layout is a little questionable inside and the interior wise. It is also underpowered in terms of guns. It's under-equipped in terms of pilot-controlled guns. 2 size 3s. I mean, yeah. Actually, this thing I think this is the same size even as a Starlancer, so in the same kind of category.
For a ship that size to only have a couple size 3 guns is a little underwhelming. You consider Akani almost is equivalent, and it's got 4 size 4s and then 2 size 3 turrets.
Look. At the sizes of this thing, and you're like, wait, why does this not have some bigger guns?
Right, yeah, I mean, look at that comparatively. Like it's
just as big as Akani. The Starlancers are a little bigger, but I mean, look at the top width of that thing. It's just as big as this Connie, and that has 4 size 5 pilot control guns. And this has 2 size 3s. It's a little shocking. So I think if you like the shape, you can pick one up and hope for a rework, but that's where it's at. The data cargo movement is not in. So questionable on whether you buy this.
Alright.
Well, that's that for Crusader. You got any last thoughts on Crusader?
No, that's all I really got. I'm surprised that we didn't see any concept ships this year for Crusader or anything like that, but
Yeah.
we'll see what the rest of the year entails. Tumbril should be pretty quick and easy. Can't go wrong with Cyclones. They're just out-of-ground vehicles that have wheels. They're one of the few ones that are actually legitimately functional, so you can't go wrong with them. The AA is good. The MT is fun. The TR with the chain gun on the front of it, we drove it into the cave at one of the Hathor sites. That was a blast. Can't really go wrong with them. There's one of them that has a cargo. There's a cargo runner that has a small grid on the back that you can snap cargo boxes to. That's actually pretty
normal. That's not offered. Maybe it's always available. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, most of these are pretty cheap in game. I mean, literally, they're like 30k in game. You could do a couple missions for a couple of hours and buy them in game. I wouldn't recommend buying them from the shop unless you just absolutely want to have one from the get-go, just to have some kind of transportation. But in my opinion, it's definitely a buy in game kind of situation. The one with the cargo grid is nice if you're doing bunkers. You can just snap a store all through the back of it and just drive it up to a bunker and then loot everything into it, and boom, you've got your little cargo runner. So
it even has 2 little lockers on the side right here.
Yeah.
Even if you don't put the box in. So I personally like the Cyclone. There is a questionable wheel design. It's always been like, hang on, what? Huh? How is that going to be holding up in muddy terrain?
But at least it's functional.
It is functional. But in terms of that, doesn't look right. At least a bit of it is a little funny. Personally, I just bought it in game. I don't know if I will have the need to buy a real life one, but I kind of like this one because of the 3-person. I think it does fit on a Zeus. So if you're gonna leave your Zeus, might as well. The Zeus is the 3-person kind of ship. So fit in there. Move on. We got the Nova, which is in a strange spot.
It's an overly engineered tank. It's cool from a theory standpoint, but the treads or the tracks have been very buggy since it's pretty much was put into the game. There's a short time where it worked pretty good, and then they did some changes to physics grids and that kind of stuff. And since then, the tracks have been in not a great state. It tends to jumble around a lot, kind of like some of the other ground vehicles do if you're not in it. And sometimes the tracks will just straight up break, which I've had that issue before. The other complaint I have about it is that when you're using it solo, you can go into like a remote turret mode so that you can control both the top gun and drive at the same time. But there's a couple of like settings as far as like being able to control both at the same time that they need to divide the key binds for it because it's overly complicated to do it. It's just too much. There's too many key binds to make it all work, and they've got to find some way to simplify it a little. The other issue is it's a top-heavy tank. You got to be very careful when you turn it because you can topple it over.
In terms of looks, I quite like it. In terms of its armament,
design-wise, it's cool.
like it.
It's cool. It is very cool.
It's just its functionality. It's confused on what is it. Why? What is this for?
If you're gonna build a tank like this, tanks are very purpose-built. I mean, most of you who play this kind of game have probably touched War Thunder or World of Tanks at some point. If you go look through like all of the tanks and stuff from like real human history, all of them have a role that they're kind of built for. The Nova tank doesn't really seem like it has one. It looks like somebody was trying to say, hey, I want to build my dream tank, but didn't know anything about the functionality of tanks. For example, tanks, especially a tank like this that has a very tall profile, makes it very easy to hit, which is generally the opposite of the design methodology for tanks. They try to keep them squash, and they try to keep them flat so that like when they're on terrain, they're difficult to see.
And here you might cut out again, but it doesn't have an enemy.
There's no.
They haven't put in the turrets. I can hear you again, but I quite like this look wise, I hope it has a future and where it fits in. I think I would just buy it in game.
Yeah, just definitely an in-game buy.
You know, I guess the idea is you buy a tank, you got insurance on it, you go out and chuck it out there, and it blows up, it's done, and then you go get the insurance money. You know, if you're going to be using your tank so often that you want warranty on it, and you're going to be upgrading the heck out of it, go get your tank for 120. But damn.
Most of the ground vehicles I'd relegate to an in-game buy. That's just as a blanket consideration. There's not much reason to buy them with actual cash.
Yeah. All right. The Storm solo alleged light tank, which is even wider somehow than the Nova tank.
Yeah. Once again, to my theme of overly designed by somebody who doesn't quite understand tanks.
Yeah. And look, it's allegedly a small item. If you look at the width, 7.5 meters length. It's huge. It's got a size 3 tank or size 3 weapon. A Nova's got a size 5. I feel like if I'm gonna even, if I buy a tank, why not just get the bigger one? But it's unfortunately it's almost too big, so you can't use it. But yeah, if you look at the sizes,
the Storm gun is like a laser cannon, I believe, or it's not a repeater, but it's got a pretty good mag size to it. But the problem is that once again, the gun sits way above the tank itself, which makes it an easy target to knock off.
It's a very confused tank. The tracks, I don't know why. How did they make this thing so wide?
Yeah.
Like, what the heck was the thought process on that? And why put a giant gun out there that stops it from getting into so many vehicles? It's just a confusing vehicle.
It's also legitimately broken right now. So the way that it opens up, like the cockpit kind of unfolds from the front, and the seat extends down. The problem is that the way the tracks are, it kind of sinks lower than the frame when it's sitting on the ground, and the seat will clip into the ground whenever you get in and out, which causes it to jump around. And then because of the tracks, as all tracked vehicles are currently in the game, they are very glitchy and will cause it to jumble around if it's sitting on any kind of surface or inside of a ship. So unless you're sitting in the cockpit, which it jumbles less if you're sitting in the cockpit, but it still does it. But I literally tried to park one of these inside of, I think, the Polaris at the time, and it literally climbed up the wall and then glitched through the floor. So it's a challenge to get these things to places where you can actually use them. The Storm AA, however, is the most useful out of the two, in my opinion. It's got a reservoir of 50-something rockets. They are EM
64 size ones.
64, yeah. It's a lot of firepower crammed into one little vehicle there. That's 70 rockets.
And 16 size too. So that's nothing to snuff at. This.
It can hit
if you can get some good lock-ons. I think it's very capable, potentially getting you a fighter screen.
It can actually hit ground vehicles too, by the way. So
oh wow, okay.
If you've got enough space between you and it, you can lock a ground vehicle and it will arc up and then shoot down like a javelin almost. So it is a multi-function tank. It's not just for AA, even though that's what it says. It is particularly effective as an AA platform because EM missiles in general hurt and they're pretty hard to get away from. But if you see it coming, you got enough flares, you'll get away from it. But it is a good deterrent.
All right. And that's it for Tumbril. Do they have any?
Not
they
really.
Do have a complete pack for.
You want every ground vehicle ever, including all 9 duplicates of the Cyclone.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's actually one of the ones that's more interesting for a
Yeah,
complete pack.
at least most of these have a separate function, I guess.
Yeah, instead of a completely duplicative
Or
one.
duplicates, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Tumbril gear pack looks cool. We have the weapon.
Oh yeah,
the Gatling.
The Gatling for the Nova.
Not really sure what that'll be for. I guess AA, just spam lead.
Yeah, I mean that wraps up most of the stuff that's going on right now with this event. I don't think
We
there's
got some packs and some paints, but got a couple more days left. Right now the Invictus paints are coming out. They are quite beautiful, I would say. So if you do want or do have some of these ships, pick them up quick for their, it's a limited time only.
Next up is Anvil Aerospace, which will have a couple days to itself, and then we have something possibly from Drake on the 25th. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll come out with a video on CCUs on what was available during ILW and when they bring them back for the end of the event. We've got, in terms of paints, these are all nice. I picked up this one, the Cyclone. I actually like this. I like the Cyclone, so I'm putting it on the Cyclone, and the Gladius is, of course, very pretty.
Got the blue and gold on the Connie, and the Connie looks great with the blue and gold.
Yeah, no, I will say this stuff is incredible in terms of looks. So pick them up while you can. Packs. There is a couple packs, I think. Was it going to be in here? Yep, there it is. Starlancer, Furies. Here's all the complete packs that they've decided to put in. All of this is, I don't know. Not getting any of this. I think this is the only one that's interesting. Is you do actually get quite a bit of savings if you're gonna go full price on the pack, and you love this thing. That's the only one I'd even consider, but I don't think I personally wouldn't do it. Because I will just CCU chain up. So.
It coming with the 2 Furies is pretty nice. It keeps you from having to buy them separately, and then whenever shit gets restarted, you still got your Furies. But they're so cheap, you could buy them within a couple hours of running around in the game.
Yeah, I think, what is it? Fury is 55, and the TAC is 375. So you do get some pretty decent savings of $65. So, I mean, that's basically a free Fury on this pack, which is why I bring it up.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only packs it's makes sense a little bit. Like, why do you have 2 Gladiuses? Why would you want that?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I feel like the reason that they do these vendor packs is because there's such a meme around that concierge pack that has every ship in the game, and now they just feel obligated to post that stuff now because it wowed and oohed and off somebody who was just like, well, we may as well throw it in the marketing material. Maybe somebody will buy it.
Right. I guess if you wanted a lot of tokens,
yeah,
Tumbril complete pack could be it. Because it's not lifetime. I thought it would be. The other pack was lifetime. Why is this one lifetime? All of these are lifetime. In the Crusader pack. Alright, well. They were like, this one's too cheap. It might be too good of a deal if you want a bunch of tokens. Alright. Well, I think we'll see you guys for the next manufacturers, and we'll discuss the offers there. Anything? Any last thoughts, Sage?
Nope, that's it for me. I'm Save
right,
Zero.
We'll see you guys next time on Outbound Podcast, leave your comments on any thoughts for ILW.
Have a good night, you guys.
Yeah.